once again to Career Journeys, where we tell stories that inspire. On this show, by interviewing professionals from different fields and backgrounds, we hope to hear different things that will inspire us in our own career journeys as well. I have with me today a very wonderful person that really looking forward to asking questions about his journey and what got him where he is today. I have with me in the studio Taiwo Jaiyeoba. Welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
I'll read a little bit from his LinkedIn profile and then I'll give him the opportunity to introduce himself more comprehensively. Now, Taiwo Jaiyeoba is city manager and CEO of the city of Greensboro in North Carolina. He has the passion to see people and places transformed. Wow, how amazing. Please introduce yourself. I know you'll do a better job. Than I can. Please introduce yourself to our
Thank
audience.
you. I appreciate that. So, again, I am, like you rightly said, I am the city manager and the chief executive officer for the city of Greensboro in North Carolina. Greensboro is the third largest city in North Carolina, has a population of about 300,000. For a number of people, that may not be a large city, but it's also not too small. We've got about 7 different colleges and universities in Greensboro, and very diverse. The 63rd largest city actually in the country, in the United States. So, like most, frankly, every city in the state of North Carolina is what we call a council manager form of government, where the manager or the CEO runs the city, but the mayor and the council, they are the political head of the city. They don't make decisions regarding finances. The city manager makes those decisions, but they set policies and they ask the city manager to really oversee the implementation of those policies. So the way to frame it is that the mayor in Greensboro, for example, is like the Queen of England, powerful in title, but is actually without the ability to execute, except in instances of emergencies. Unlike some other cities like your Atlanta or your Boston or even Chicago, where the mayor is a powerful mayor, and doesn't have a city manager, but they probably have a chief administrative officer or the chief operating officer. For Greensboro, I essentially run the city with a staff of about 3,300 people and a budget of almost 800 million per year. Now, I was assistant city manager in the city of Charlotte, which is the largest city, of course, in North Carolina and the 15th largest in the country. I was assistant city manager there for about 4 years. And I was also planning director before I took on this job about 2 years ago.
Wow.
So that's essentially what it's been. My career has spanned multiple states, California, where we first met.
Yes, many years ago.
Many years ago. Yes, I know. Sounds like a long, long time ago.
We won't say how many years, so people won't think we're old.
Exactly. They won't think we're too old for this. Yeah. So, and then I went to Michigan and then subsequently to Georgia, where I worked in Atlanta. And then the company transferred me to Charlotte in 2015. And then I joined the city of Charlotte in 2018. And then, of course, became the city manager here in Greensboro in 2022. So that's pretty much a snapshot of what I do. I oversee the police department, the fire department, people who manage our transportation, transit system, housing, pretty much everything except the school district.
Wow, that is amazing. Let's go all the way. We have a lot to unpack here, but
Yes.
let's go all the way to college.
Yeah.
What does one study in college to become a city manager, or is it more of an evolution of process where you don't really you just pick up the skills as you go
Yes.
along. But more specifically, in your own case, what did you study in college? How did that kind of lay the foundation for where you are at today?
That's a very good question. I think becoming a city manager is really more of something you evolve into. If you have a degree in public administration, you probably will be a great city manager or even in business administration. In my own case, I studied geography in my bachelor's at the University of Ife, we called it in those days, um, which is now called OAU. And then I went on to do my master's in urban and regional planning.
Mm.
I always believe that planners make the best city managers for the
Wow.
very reason that planners, by their training, can connect the dots in the environment. Everything you do in planning has to do with how someone picks up your recycle bins or pick up your trash bins, your pavement of roads, your sidewalks installation, even how you manage public safety and housing. Planners may not be subject matter of each one of those areas, but they manage the space in which those things happen. Now, when I did my master's in planning, not in the whole wide world would I have ever thought I would be a city manager. I did that in planning, and then I went to the country of Botswana where I worked as a planner, and then for 4 years, and then came to the United States back in 1996. Now, I remember when I was coming to the United States, I remember writing in my journal that I will go to the United States and I will be the planning director of a large city. Now, I did not know that was ever going to happen, but it ultimately happened in 2018. To me, when you study planning, that's where you believe the pinnacle of your career is. If you study medicine, you believe you're going to be a medical doctor, but you could end up being the head of CDC, right? You could end up being the White House physician, but you never went to school to study those things. But what you go to school to study provides the platform or the foundation for anything you're ultimately going to become. And so, as a planner, I became the planning director. And frankly, I thought that that was it when it comes to my career, professional career, trajectory. But I also knew that I could manage a city. And so, when I was asked to step up as assistant city manager, the first question I asked my boss is, "Are you going to mentor me to manage a city on my own in the future?" And they agreed to do so. So we spent those 4 years talking about City Manager 101, things of that nature. So I studied planning and I've worked as a planner. That's probably the only thing I've done all my life is to work as a planner, whether land use planning or transportation planning. But it provide the basic foundation and platform that you need to be able to move into a city management space and manage your people and places.
Wow. I'm always so intrigued about the behind the scenes stories
Yes.
of people's careers. It's never what you assume, it's never what you, it's almost never what you
Mhm.
assume. And everyone has such a unique story. Um, so, right now, as the city manager in Greensboro, what do you find to be the most fulfilling aspect of your job? What do you enjoy the most?
What I enjoy the most, of course, I enjoy every aspect of my job. I will be very honest with you. I wake up every day, because no 2 days are the same. So, and I am somebody who loves challenges. I've always thrived on challenges. And so that's one thing I would say I love about my job is that no 2 days are the same. There will always be one thing or the other that distinguishes that day. But at the end of the day, the thing that gives me joy the most is when I ask myself a question: whose life have I touched today? In
Wow.
one way or the other, I am touching a life in this position.
Mm.
Whether I am touching that life by trying to prevent them from being evicted from their homes, or whether it's someone who was arrested by one of our police officers after having committed a crime, or did we fund a developer and help that developer to get their project online because of a city fund? At the end of every single day, I ask myself that question: whose life have I touched today? And that made me, frankly speaking, to really look and realize that this job is not about coming in every morning, putting in a few hours, because my job really is 24/7, right? I mean, if anything happens in the city overnight, I can get a call, and you're ready for that. So I love that aspect of the challenge. I love the aspect of being able to create solutions to problems. Knowing fully well that our city is not the same as other cities, so the problems are going to be unique. I like being able to help private developers, private business people, realize that we can actually work together to meet the needs of our residents and business people. And so I love it. I enjoy the fact I can come here daily, meet challenges, touch people's lives. Again, I have passion to see people and places transformed. So I have to ask myself, when I am done in a day, that 5, 6 p.m. thing, um, I ask myself, whose life have I touched today? And how have I touched that life? And that gives me the motivation to even want to come back again the following day and do it all over again.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Now, while talking, you mentioned that your city, Greensboro, is not like other cities. Just could you care to elaborate? What makes Greensboro different?
What makes so I always believe that every city is very different, right? But what makes Greensboro different, in my mind, from all the different cities that I have been to, is number one, we've got about 7 different colleges.
Hmm.
City. For a city of about 130 some square miles, that equates to almost one college for about 15 or so square miles. That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
Secondly, is that while we are not 100% a university town or a college town, out
Hmm.
of our 300 and some thousand people, over 70,000 of our population is made up of young people to one of these colleges.
Wow.
That's also very unique because then you create pipeline for your workforce. We have the largest historically black college and university in the country, AMT, CANT, which is the largest university in the country attended by black and minority students. And it generates also the largest number of black engineers in the country.
Oh, wow.
We have within the city about 4 lakes. Usually, most cities will have 1 or 2 lakes or outside, but we've actually got about 4 lakes within the city, which makes us always one of those top cities in the country when it comes to recreation for young people. So those lakes, the different parks that we have, we always say that Greensboro is what led to the Revolutionary Battle being won between the United States and Great Britain, because this is really where General Cornwallis actually was defeated by General Greene, who is the foundation for the city of Greenville. And so we always believe that that story there is what makes Greensboro very, very unique. And we're also centrally located. At the time in the past when a lot of cities were not investing in their transportation infrastructure, Greensboro did that because of its central location in the state. And so today, you can get anywhere, most anywhere in this city by within a 15-minute time frame. If you pick a place right now and say, I want to go there, that place is likely going to be about 15 minutes drive from.
Hmm.
So I think that all of those things make us very unique as a city, and we continue to be one of the probably the top in the country, especially when it comes to measuring equity index. They always say that Greensboro is number one in the country when it comes to that. I think it's called the MEI. And so we've retained that now for the last several years because the city is very equitable. We had one of the first African American female mayors in the country, and she also worked with Martin Luther King Jr. During the civil rights march of the 60s. And she's still a mayor pro tem even today. And so we've got a lot of connection with history. This is really where the sitting movement started, when African Americans were not allowed to go into a restaurant and sit with their white patrons.
Hmm.
4 NCANT students went into Woolworth restaurant, and they decided they were going to sit and eat. And so the sitting movement that spread like wildfire across the country
Hmm.
ultimately actually started here in Greensboro. And this is where we have the International Civil Rights Museum dedicated to those 4 young black African, young black A&T students who started that movement. So yeah, there's a lot of things that make Greensboro a very unique city.
Wow. I'm sold. I think I need to come and visit
It's
Greensboro.
true. Definitely it's true.
I am sold. Let's flip that question.
Okay.
Or not this question, but the question before this,
Yeah.
and talk about what gives you the biggest challenge, or
Mm.
what are maybe some of the biggest challenges you've had,
Yeah.
either in your career or on the current job
I can
you are
actually
in
answer both.
currently.
So let's think about, I often think about it this way. What keeps me up at night? Uh,
Mm.
and I would say that public safety is one of those. Most cities are dealing with that right now, and we're not unique in that space, but it's a very important aspect of our daily life. People attach quality of life to safety.
Yeah.
And if they perceive that they are not safe, they will move and go elsewhere. And when people leave your city, it becomes very, it's less thriving, let's put it that
Yeah.
way. And reputation is very important. So public safety keeps me up. If any single moment we lose someone, uh, either to a shooting incident, or
Mm.
something is stolen, or there's violent crime committed, I definitely lose my sleep on that. So that's a challenge. It's not enough to pay police officers, even though we try to definitely do that and make them competitive. The job of a police officer in itself is very challenging,
Yeah.
but the community also needs to be held accountable and responsible for their own actions. And how do we do that? And so that keeps me up. Then the second issue is the issue of affordable housing. We continue to see more and more the gap between the number of housing units we have and how affordable it is for a lot of our residents. A lot of people move into our city who come from New York or Boston or Chicago or Seattle or Houston, Dallas, LA. They have money, right? They
Yeah.
can
They are
purchase.
ready to pay top dollar.
Exactly. But for our residents who live here, it's
Yeah.
a challenge and you have to compete. And so,
Mm.
how many units of housing do I need to build or upgrade in order to meet that? So, I'm always, every single week, looking for solutions to housing that it can be attainable, affordable, and accessible by residents. And the third one is really infrastructure. Greensboro is an old city, like a number of cities, of course. And if I hear today that we have a water main break, the likelihood is that that water main break is not because of development or a construction worker, hit a pipeline under the street. The chances are it's because it's 100 years old.
Yeah.
It has exceeded its useful life. And infrastructure runs a city. If you don't have proper water infrastructure, you don't have proper sidewalks, it creates difficulty for people who are old or in wheelchairs to be able to navigate the city system. And so that those three issues, public safety, housing, infrastructure, they are major challenges for a growing city like ours, and we're growing. Career-wise, it's always interesting. I think when I was a planner and my kid asked me what I do, it was always very difficult to explain. Even, are you an event planner, or what exactly do you plan? And so when you say you plan land use, and then we're driving around and they say, Dad, did you do that? It's like, so that's always a tough one. And then it's even more complex now that you say you're a city manager or you're the CEO of a city.
Mm.
What exactly does that mean? So that's a challenge. And so what I've tried to do, frankly speaking, is that I bring my daughters to work and I
Wow.
try to explain to them. Now, I don't know if you remember my oldest, Ari. She lives in
She
Phoenix.
was. She was.
She was still
Last
living
time I saw her, she.
exactly. Now she lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and guess what she's doing? She's a transportation planner. Um,
Oh wow, that's amazing.
was an influence. I remember my second daughter came into my office one day and took one of my business cards, and she erased my name, put her name there, and she erased my job title and put a job title there. She says she's a diplomat. And now she's working and traveling the world and seeing the world, and that's exactly what she wanted to do. So I felt that the best way to frankly be able to describe my job is by exposing my kids to it and exposing other people to it as well. So But the challenge of describing my job doesn't necessarily compare with the challenges that we face every single day as a city
Mm.
manager, like I said.
Oh wow, amazing, amazing. Wow, I'm so tickled by that, especially when you talk about your daughters because I can remember,
Yeah.
you know, that's oh wow, that's beautiful. Um how does that let me just ask her, how does that make you feel when, for example, your daughter is,
Yeah.
you know, following your footsteps
Yeah. It
and
really makes me feel.
wanting to do what she's seen her father do all these years?
On one hand, you worry that they are following your steps, and you hope that you're not making them do it. You're
Hmm.
hoping that I I'm hopeful that you're creating your own path, and this is you.
Yes.
So
Mm.
when she called me and she said, "Hey, I'm interviewing for this transportation planning job. I've never been a transportation planner." She went to school to study psychology and communications. I said,
Hmm.
well, transportation planning is not all technical, whether you have an engineering background or a planning background, but there are aspects to it. You could be a great community outreach person. You could be a great communications and marketing person. They could use you in a myriad of ways. And so you don't feel that you have to be an engineer to succeed as a transportation planner. So you go into this interview, be your best authentic self, and talk about what you can offer. And she called to say that she got the job. It happened to also be a company that I'd worked with before. And so
Wow.
name recognition was there because of the last name. So I
Yeah.
said, well, you know what? I think I made a name for myself in that company, but I'm sure you can do better
Hmm.
in that place. So now she's been there for months. And when I asked her, how are you doing? She said, Dad, I wish I started this job much earlier. I'm
Oh.
loving it. And so I
Wow.
feel
That's so
good
precious.
that she created her own path. She's
Hmm.
following it. And I pray every day that they all, are able to realize that themselves.
Wow, that's amazing. I'll ask another question along these lines. If you will, please speak to parents on the line,
Yes.
in the audience, on maybe how some tips on how to mentor, best practices
Mhm.
in mentoring our young adults
Yes.
in their career paths, and how best to help them flourish and go into their own
Yes.
and not impose our vision
Mhm.
for what their career ought to look like on them.
Yeah. That's very important, frankly speaking. As parents, when our first daughter, was going to college, she actually said she was going to study music. That's really what was in her mind. And it was a struggle because, hey, listen, you have this Nigerian background. Um, you want your daughter to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, an accountant, something that has some professional thing behind it. If they don't have a PhD, it's got to be something that has
Okay.
some letters in front of it. And so you're not, why would you want to go study music? But at the end of the day, a cousin of mine said to me, the choice of a college and the choice of a career is probably the most independent thing that a young adult could do at that
Wow.
point in time. Let them make their decision. Your role as a parent is to guide and help them navigate the space.
Mm.
You know what? She did not go to study music. She went ahead to study communications, Howard University, and ultimately went to college in Arizona to finish
Mm.
her degree. Um, but now, a sister is in college studying music.
Mm.
I didn't flinch. I learned from that moment that young adults, they need to be allowed to make their own mistakes and make their own
Mm.
choices, because if they don't, they will not know what other world is out there for them. It's
Okay.
also a process of elimination. If you
Mm.
start and you spend the first year and you realize it's not what you want to do, you can always, that's the beauty of university education, you can always
Yeah.
pivot and move in a different direction. So I would say, parent, don't make your children do what you want them to do. And it definitely should not be about money. It should not be about us. It should be about them and their future. And the world is changing. I have a uniqueness now of mentoring a lot of young people in their 20s and 30s. And it's amazing, that my mentoring now is different. It's about how can I help you succeed
Hmm.
rather than I want to hire you to come work for me. In
Yeah.
your chosen space, how can I help you succeed? Is it by connecting you with people in my social network? Or is it by giving you some thoughts and ideas? Or do you just want to hang out socially and just, and I went through divorce. And so it's not an easy thing when you have to parent as a stepdad, or
Yeah.
you have to parent without their biological mom
Mm,
or with their stepmom.
mm,
But it's very interesting that at the end of the day, what guides you again is not you, but what
mm.
guides you is their own direction.
That's
If they're making some wrong choices,
mm,
you have to help them to understand
mm,
what the best choices are,
yeah.
and not condemn, because that won't work. Um, I think condemnation alienates in my mind.
Yeah. Yes.
But I believe that you have to motivate. And then, where it's possible, use your life as an example. I didn't start out to be a city manager, like I said earlier. I wasn't even the best student in high school, I tell my kids. And in the university, I wasn't really the best either. But my parents allowed me to make choices. I studied geography, then planning, and frankly speaking, all of them in Nigeria. The
Mm,
only degree I received in this country was only during the pandemic in 2019 when I went to MIT and decided I was going to do some classes in global leadership.
wow.
And, regardless of your background and regardless of where you've gone to school, your
Mm,
experience may not be the best template for your children. You've got to allow them to set their own pace. And all we can do as parents is to use our wisdom, regardless of our own mistakes, regardless of what we've gone through and experienced.
yeah.
Let them make their own mistakes if they have to, because unless they make those mistakes, they will never be able to independently develop initiatives for themselves.
Wow. That is so rich. That is so, so rich. Because I think that we miss the opportunity to give them correct guidance when we're so afraid that
Mm-hmm.
to,
Mm-hmm.
make this big giant mistake that's just going to shipwreck their lives,
Yeah.
either because they choose a degree that we think they, is not economically viable,
Mm-hmm.
or they change their minds along the way.
Yeah.
And I think we get so emotional
Yes.
about some of those decisions that they may make that we miss the opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
guide them, right? Like you rightly said, as a Nigerian parent, your child comes and says, okay, I want to do music. And then all these scenarios play out in your mind. But but why can't we think of the fact that, you know what? There are successful people who did music.
Mm-hmm.
How can I help my child to be amongst that number?
Yeah.
There are successful people who did whatever degree or whatever career choice that my child makes. How can I be in the picture and
Yes.
let them know that I'm in the picture, so that they know they can always come to me and I won't, because like you said, because I've condemned them, I've, said all these things, that they don't even see me as a safe space to come to
Mm-hmm.
anymore, right? I think that what you have shared is so profound. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Now, going back to, because I mean, I had my kids, both of my kids, they are not studying what they went in for. My son changed his mind after his first year. My daughter changed her mind after the first semester. I And they're like, no, I mean, no, this isn't for me. I
Yeah.
think for my son, I was more emotional. I think I loved his degree, the first choice, more than he loved it. Right.
That's so true. So true.
So when he changed his mind, it's like, I thought we were going to study this.
I tell you, I can share a little story here before your next question. But I remember after my first degree in geography, I wanted to leave Nigeria. That was my next ambition. It wasn't like I wanted to leave Nigeria to go and do anything meaningful somewhere. I just wanted to leave Nigeria, and I still remember that after the traditional national youth service thing that we did, I just wanted to go somewhere. And I remember my father looking at me and said, "Yeah, that's good, but here's the thing: you have to have an idea what you're even going to do wherever you go. So whether you're in Nigeria or you're abroad, you got to know what you really are going to do." And the fact of the matter was that I had no vision for my life. My only vision was just get out of
Get
Nigeria,
out.
and
Hmm.
that's not good enough vision. Because
Yeah.
if you don't succeed in Nigeria, what gives you the guarantee that you're going to
Hmm.
succeed if you get out of the place? So
Hmm.
what is then said to me next totally upset me. And that was the fact that he already paid the registration fee and application fee for me to study a master's degree in planning. I said, "What did you do that for? Why are you planning my life for me? It's my life." I mean, I just didn't like the idea. And then my dad, I still remember very well, we were driving and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said to me, "Planners change the world."
Wow.
And I said to him, "Don't worry, I'll go do it because you're my dad. But when the diploma is done, I'll give it to you."
I'll give it back to you.
Yes. And he said, "I will gladly hang it on my office wall." He said, "It's okay, do it for me." And I did that degree faithfully for 2 years as a planner. Okay.
Hmm.
But I look back when I became planning director, I'm not sure that I would have been able to get to that point. Now, he didn't force me. He
Hmm.
just said, "Do this for me. If you choose not to," in fact, he told me if after 1 year in that course, you still feel like there's something else you want to do, it's
Yeah.
okay, but
Wow.
do it for me. But after the first year, I realized, you know what, it's a 2 year program. If I've gone this far and done 1 year, what is it about the second year? I'll do
Let
the
me just
final.
finish.
Exactly. I just give the man the diploma when it's all said and done. And here we are, many years later. I'm glad I listened to his advice
Wow.
and his counsel. But the
Wow.
beauty of it was he never forced me, and we've never had a planner in our family. My dad was a psychiatrist, my mom was a nurse. Everybody else in my family does something related to a PhD thing somewhere. So it
Wow.
was really an out of the box thinking. And I think that we need to give our children that.
Me too.
Um,
Wow. I think your father was way beyond his time
I believe
because,
so.
man, that is amazing. I was recently in Nigeria with my daughter. I mean, my daughter loves art, and
Yeah.
she first went into, she loves art. She went to a STEM high school. So she kind of, in deciding a major, she kind of came up with we kind of came up with something that seemed to make sense. And she went in for architecture. And after a semester of architecture, she's like, "I don't see myself doing this for the rest of my life." So, so she talked to different people, and eventually she went in a different direction. That's,
Yeah.
it's involves more art in design and all that. And then we went to Nigeria, right, recently, this summer to be precise. And every time people would ask her what she was in college for, we talked about this and we joked about it, that immediately it wasn't engineering or medicine or what else, or law. It's like you just lost them.
Yeah. That's the
You just
thing.
lost
Yeah.
them.
Because people just don't think outside the box. They just think about the same thing. Why are you in college to study philosophy? What are you doing that planning degree for? Why not accounting? Why not an engineer? Those are great programs if you can get them. But the fact of the matter is that they don't define a person.
They don't, yes, yeah. And we have to be conscious of that. And the world has changed so much too.
Yeah.
Our children are not living in the world we grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we are not living in the world that our parents grew up in.
Hmm.
Um, just giving them guidance based on that, I believe, is so, so
That is true.
important. Now, Let's go back to talking about your role and your
Yes.
responsibilities and what you do on a day-to-day basis. It sounds like there's so many moving parts,
Yes, there are.
so many different moving parts. How do you, and we'll get to working with people in a moment, but how do you keep on top of all these different moving pieces that
That's
you have to deal with?
That's very good. We in the school of leadership, right? We always say that leaders should be big thinkers and they should be visionaries, big picture people. Um, that's what defines leadership. I found that as a city manager, while that is good, you also have to be someone who thinks small. In other words, you pay attention to details. One of the things that I found quickly, because I'm also a person of faith, um, is when I read the story of Joseph, after Joseph became prime minister, one of the first things that they said he did was he traveled the country
Wow.
and he was able to observe firsthand the work that his leaders were doing, details. Um, those details could be I'm driving to work and I noticed that the sign on one of our the sign on one of our streets is fading, or the sign on the street is fading. I can call on my engineers and say, or facility guy, and say, hey, I need this to be taken care of. That's not micromanaging. Micromanagement is looking over people's shoulders and telling them what to do. Paying attention to details, in my mind, is about excellence. You don't want, I could dream of big things all day long. But
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is that it is little hinges that swing huge doors.
Hmm.
Don't pay attention to those little details, they could mess up your big vision. So that to me is very, very important. Then secondly is the leaders that you surround yourself with. You don't have to do everything, because at the end of the day, no matter how wonderful we are as leaders, we're not omnipresent and we're not omnipotent. So you've got to have people who can lead for you. So one of the first things I did when I got here was to appoint a chief of staff, someone I've had a relationship with prior to me coming here. So within 2 weeks of me getting here, I brought her on board. Um, she pretty much is like my eye and my body and my brain in so many places where I'm not able to go. But because she's my chief of staff, I spend minutes with her every single day so she understands the direction that I'm going. Yes, I do have assistant city managers, but the chief of staff is very important because she's able to really grasp the details that I want to pass on. And I've got multiple directors who head different departments. I have monthly lunches or breakfast or dinner with them. I may not do it every month, but I spread it over a quarter of a period. And so having the right people in the right places that you can trust helps take the stress off and allows you to be able to spread yourself without spreading yourself thin. Then I report to 9 council members, including the mayor, on 9. So 9 different expectations every single day, and 9 different visions, 9 different ideas. And the question is always, how do you please 9 people? And my answer is no, I don't. My solution is that I try to get them to a happier place, to a happy place. Um, and the happy place for each one of them may be different. The happy place for one person may be that I call a constituent back. The happy the happy place for another one could be that I sent an email out to them addressing certain questions. And so you have to really make sure that you have the right people in place, and also make sure that you connect with your elected officials on a regular basis. Um, People don't have to be your friends in the workplace, but they have to recognize the fact that you appreciate them, you value them, and that they are important to your well-being and they are important to you as a person. If I wake up in the morning and try as I may to come into work, I'm not feeling very well, I should never feel guilty to take the day off because I have the right people who can work and manage. I never put, this out of the office messages. I don't use them because, like I said, my job is 24/7. But the people who need to know, if I'm going on vacation, they know that I'm out. So even if the email comes to me, my chief of staff has access to my email inbox. She will be able to take care of that with my assistant. That way, you can spread yourself without spreading yourself thin.
Wow, wow. So, so we're talking about like effective leadership here and having people buy into your leadership and
Yes.
wanting to go in the direction that you want to lead in, what would you say are the top three um, skills, if you will, or character traits that you've adopted over the years that have helped you to do that more
That's really
efficiently?
very important. I believe leaders are readers. Uh,
Mm,
you have to read. So, and I categorize reading in two different buckets, right?
mm,
Reading is one where you go to the library or you go online and you order some leadership books or you order some fiction books and you read those on your own for your self development. But there's another piece of reading where people send you fact sheets or
mm,
pages of reams of documents. So I tell people that if you want me to read what you're saying to me, please can you not go beyond 2 pages? I
mm,
just need enough information because if you get to this level in your career and you have
mm,
to read 20 pages in order to understand
yeah,
something, that's a problem. And
yeah,
so I say, give me 1 to 2 pages. I
mm,
can I can come to the right conclusions. And if my conclusions are still shaky, I will talk to you after that. So those are two things. I believe leaders have to be readers. And I've always loved to read.
mm,
I make notes. I tell people all the time the purpose of your cell phone is not just to text or make phone calls or to play games. You can put notes on there. Ideas. They come when you read. That's one. Secondly, is in my mind, leaders have to be visionaries, and it's just absolutely important. It's
mm,
absolutely important that you have to see beyond your years. You have to see beyond your time. You have to be a connector. So when people are telling you that public safety, for example, is about police, is about fire, is about 911, you have
mm,
to say to them, yes, I agree. But public safety is also about the 82-year-old person crossing the street safely.
mm,
Public safety is also about a 6-year-old, being able to navigate the space where there's so many traffic on the street and all of that.
mm,
So you got to expand people's thinking, and part of
yeah,
that is being a visionary. You have to learn to connect the dots. So I call myself a connector. Um, in terms of understanding exactly what's going on. So a leader has to be able to see from a panoramic perspective. You can't
mm,
just look at everything like these things. It
open-minded.
doesn't matter if a subject matter expert is talking to you about their own thing.
Mhm, mhm,
As
mhm.
leader have to see more than that.
Yeah.
There's a reason they call bosses supervisors. I always say is because you have a supervision. And
Mm,
so if you don't have a supervision, it's difficult for you to manage people.
yeah.
And then thirdly, for me, is that it's not enough to be that person who is a connector and have this vision and read, but you also have to be bold. A
Mm,
leader has to be, I always say, you have to be bold but not brash. You don't have to be brash, you
mm,
just have to be bold. And being bold means you assess everything and you just decide this is the direction we're going to go. And you have to test that with others who are close to you.
yeah.
Because if you miss it, you also have to give yourself an opportunity to be able to recover
Mm,
quickly. And so I feel that those are three things personally for me that have really marked my, ability to be a leader. I alluded to something earlier that I went through a divorce.
mm,
I feel like when we go through life events,
yeah.
as leaders, sometimes it makes us to doubt ourselves. So I've
Mm,
also added another one to it that leaders have to be resilient. You
yeah.
have to understand that failure in one area does not mean failure in every area. And
Mm,
so you have to be resilient and heal up quickly, and
mm,
move forward. Because unless you do that, there are so many other people are depending on you, so you have to be resilient. The fact that people criticized you over a decision you made doesn't mean you've got to sleep there. Take that criticism for what it's worth. Keep moving. I think it was Winston Churchill who said, if you stop to throw stones at every dog that barks, you will never get to where you're going.
I'm getting
So you
away.
can't listen to every criticism and stay there and let it kill you or swallow you. You've got to
Mm,
learn to be resilient enough to move forward
wow.
despite the mistakes.
Wow. Wow. That's so powerful. That is so rich. I have two questions. I'll ask one, let you answer, then ask another from what you've just said. how do you deal with so many people? How do you deal with difficult people? How do you lead difficult people? How do you deal with difficult people? How do you bring something worthwhile, something useful out of difficult people?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm not a confrontational person by nature. I'm very mellow. I'm not extrovert. I'm not absolutely introvert. I think I'm somewhere in the middle where they call ambivert. So I am not confrontational. However, I am also not conflict averse. If I say conflict, I don't run away from it. So I can have difficult conversations with people. I can have crucial conversations with people. Someone has said this and said, be careful the judgment you make because everyone is going through something, right? You know what people are going through. Someone is difficult for a reason, be because of something they're going through or because of an experience that they have had. It may not even be about me. It may also be
Yeah.
about me. And so I try to understand why people are difficult. I try to get, and I deal with this every single day, believe me. And so I have to understand what exactly is your reason for being difficult. Is it a decision that I have made or an unintended consequence of a decision that I made? Or could it be because you had a situation? You don't have to share that personal situation, but I need to understand why are we here? And if I understand why, then I can address that. Someone comes to me and say, hey, you know what? I don't like the fact that you increased the salary for someone who started this job 2 years and I've only been here 2 years ago and I've been here for like 20 years and this person's salary was more than mine. Um, I don't like the fact that you hire that person at that salary when it's definitely more than mine. I have to understand that where they're going. I have to understand that there's some legitimacy behind that question and I've got to be able to address it. There are difficult community members, residents, and no matter what you try to do, um, they will they will continue to be difficult. You have to be firm. I had someone who was sending me emails and calling me names and saying a lot of stuff and would copy my council member. But I made a decision. I will not respond. Unless your email and your communication with me is rude, it's courteous, it's not polite, and you're calling me names, I will not respond to you until you know how to properly address me. And if you choose not to, then it's on you. And I told the council member the same thing. So you may want to talk to your constituent. I would like to work with you, but while you continue to be rude, uh, you know, being impolite, we're not going to have that conversation because it will not make any sense.
Yeah.
You know, and so in other words, you got to deal with difficult people in different ways, and we're going to do that every time. And then the most important thing in my mind is that don't be difficult yourself.
Mm.
you know, be reasonable. As a leader, you can be firm, you can be reasonable, but don't let people say that you are the one who is actually difficult. Because at the end of the day, most people don't see the little guy. It's you that people see. And if you're very difficult, you'll be in the media and people will not get the context. They will not understand the story. So you've got to figure out a way that you are not the one who carries a reputation of being the most difficult in the relationship.
Oh, wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. As we, round up and bring this session to a close, I'd like you to speak to somebody who may be watching this today and who needs to bounce back from what they consider maybe a failure, something that didn't go the way they expected, that needs to build, bring themselves out of
Mhm.
it and bounce back so
Yeah.
that they can continue to add value to people around them. I'd like you to just give a word of encouragement, maybe stir them up, maybe give them pointers, and just speak to the audience,
All
please,
right.
as we
Thank you. I
round up.
appreciate that. So the first thing that I would say, frankly speaking, is that I don't know who said it. It's a failure is an event, and so you got to treat it as that. Now, failure for different people could be a lot. Failure could be that you made a bad decision at work and you were fired, or you went through some life situations in your life, whether they were a fault of yours or not. It still impacts you. I have a friend who was a CEO of an organization. He always wanted to be CEO. We graduated together from a leadership class. and he finally got to be CEO. And when he became CEO, um, he made some poor judgment. For example, through the procurement process, uh, even though what he did could have been seen by others as okay, but the optics showed otherwise. So the board decided to terminate him as a CEO. So for 2 years, he kept looking for a job and he couldn't find any because his whole thing was in news. All you need to do is to put his name or her name out there, and people found it and decided they were not going to. And I would call him and talk to him, don't give up, opportunities come up for you. And indeed, opportunity came for him. It wasn't in the place that he expected it, but it ultimately came for him. And now he's leading an organization, and he's learned from that failure, but because he did not give up. So again, failure is an event. Depending on the scope of it, you might have to, learn from something there that you can really improve on. But one of the things that helped him in that instance was that he did not stop looking. Uh, he did not stop, and he kept utilizing the individuals he still had in his network to overcome that. I've shared my own personal story with. I've been married now for about 8 years. I think that at that point in time when I was going through a very painful divorce and even, all the stuff that came with it, it was unimaginable for me to think that one day I would be a CEO of a city, managing a budget of about $800 million in this staff.
Imagine if you had shut down then and just
Exactly. And the opportunity would never have come. So I don't care what the situation is. You have to pick up and move from there. My entire career did not start in Nigeria, right? Because after I finished that degree in planning, I went to Botswana. I was there for 4 years. But I went to a small town of 12,000 or 13,000 people. I was in obscurity. Nobody knew, that coming out of that place, maybe this person who is here today. A place called Bobonong in Botswana, north of the country. The nearest town where you could get any movie theater to watch was like 2 hours away. I was forced to learn the local language because nobody in the area spoke my Nigerian language.
wow.
So, and then one thing led to the other. I found myself in the United States, and in 1996 moved here. And you might think you're in obscurity.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who you are versus where you want to go. But don't stop. Keep pushing, keep pounding, keep your vision in front of you. And of course, keep praying. And whatever opportunities are there, seek for mentors. Don't ignore opportunities, even if it doesn't line up with what you went to school to do. Just keep looking for those opportunities and improve on yourself, improve your personality, improve your attitude. And, when you do those things, opportunities will come looking for you rather than you looking for those opportunities ultimately.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so, so much.
Thank
This
you.
has been a very rich time with you. I know that our audience, the members of our audience, have heard number of things. In fact, many things to take with them and get inspired, get encouraged, get motivated to come out of a slump, maybe, or to keep moving in
Yeah.
the direction that they are supposed to. So I want to appreciate you and say thank you for joining me and thank you for sharing from your heart. I've learned a lot. I like to say my daughter does something similar to this for teenagers as well. And we were sharing notes the other day, and we came to the conclusion that we probably learn from these sessions more than anybody who watches. So I want to say a big thank you.
No, thank you
I
for inviting me.
thank you for gracefully accepting to be here. I hope that I get another opportunity to interview you on a platform like
Thank
this.
you. I hope I do too.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.